Super Rugby Power Rankings, folks. We're finally getting the combined power rankings after, 10 rounds in. We finally saw some Trans-Tasman action. Kiwi teams took out 4 of the 5 games. And there was one game which was postponed, being Moana, Pasifika, and the Force. So, I finally managed to combine them. I've had to do a little bit of jiggery-pokery in the background to basically debuff all the Aussie results prior to this round, which means we might get a fair reflection. It's definitely not perfect, folks, but it's the best I could do. And you guys, as always, can let me know your thoughts. So, the bottom of the combined rankings, we have the Drua. Drua have only beaten the Rebels thus far in their campaign. They played the top side in the Blues and got pretty well beaten. I didn't think the scoreline reflected the game. So I still think there was plenty of positives in that for the Drua, but ultimately it was a pretty big loss. So they are 12th on the first version of these combined Super Rugby Power Rankings. Next are the Rebels. They are the only team that I've counted as having a home game at the weekend because they actually played at home, although it was the Super Round and a lot of the Kiwi teams were listed as the home teams. I'm still saying for the most part they were neutral venues. Except for the Rebels, who were genuinely at home, and they genuinely got beaten by the Crusaders pretty handily. There's another one where there were certainly some positives in it. They could have got beaten by more if the Crusaders had had better handling in that first half, but there you go. The Rebels are down in 11th. The Force would probably be below the Rebels, to be honest, but because they had a bye... Well, not a bye, but a cancelled or postponed game. They've not kind of been punished. They've just stayed the same. So it's kind of better to stay the same than to have a loss, right? So the Rebels lost, whereas they didn't. That's the only reason there's a difference between them. Otherwise, the Force would genuinely likely be below the Rebels if they'd lost. If they'd won, they would have certainly been higher. So, the Force with that game are there. And we got one Kiwi team in the bottom row, and it's not Moana Pasifika, it's the Highlanders, the only one of the Kiwi teams to lose to Aussie opposition, albeit to the Brumbies, who are a pretty tidy looking outfit. So, Highlanders campaign's not been going great, and it didn't get any better in the Super Round. So, they lost to a strong Brumbies side, which is pleasing to say. Strong Brumbies side, not that the Highlanders lost. Next, I've got Moana Pasifika, another one that might be a bit lower had they gotten beaten, but because they didn't play, they kind of get not a win, but it's like it's better than a loss. I do feel for these guys. The fact that they've had another game pushed back, so it means they're going to have another quick turnaround of kind of Saturday game, midweek game, Saturday game. It's just so disruptive in their first season. It's been hard on them. No one would have wished this on them, but as Sakopi Kepu has said, they'll just kind of do the best they can in the hard situation. Next, the Tars. The Tars come in at 7th. Tars have been decent. They showed some decent patches in that Chiefs game, but again, ultimately shipped way too many points. It ended up looking pretty bloody lopsided. That one for the Tars. Obviously, the red card at the start didn't help them, but that's just the way it goes sometimes. The Reds I have got in here at 6th. So, 17-point lead, I think it was. Blown away by the Hurricanes. So, really disappointing result. Albeit without James O'Connor, without Jordan Pataia, but still, man, 17-point lead. Someone said it in the comments, can you see many of the Kiwi teams having a 17-point lead and then coughing it up? Maybe my Blues from time to time, but even this year they're not looking like that kind of team. So, that was really disappointing. And interestingly, it's close, but I've got the Brumbies here in 5th. Now, this is not my personal opinion. I'd like to see the Brumbies a bit higher, but just the way I debuffed all the Aussie results meant that the Aussie best team couldn't quite top the 4th best Kiwi team. So maybe that's fair, based on the results we saw at the weekend with only one Aussie team getting a win, or maybe it's a little bit harsh on the Brumbies. You guys can let me know. The Brumbies, solid win over the Highlanders, albeit the worst New Zealand team thus far. A win is still a win, and it was solid enough, man. They could have had, more tries at the start if Tom Wright had not dropped the ball and whatnot. So, yeah, I'm still encouraged for the Brumbies, even though they've come out in 5th in the rankings. Marginally, very marginally ahead of them are the Canes. Canes will be certainly pleased with that comeback win over the Reds. Like I mentioned, the Reds, as disappointed as they will be, the Canes will be the opposite. They'll be, pretty elated with the way they were to come back and score. It was like 34 unanswered points. So, yeah, good result for the Canes. If they'd lost that one, they'd certainly be below the Brumbies, and it would have been maybe a bit of a dent in their campaign. The Chiefs I've got in 3rd. They did beat the Tars pretty handily. Like I mentioned, they were made to fight for it at times, but ultimately over the course of the 80, they were just the better team. Crusaders I got in 2nd. They're the only side that I've kind of rewarded with a genuine away win. Everyone else was neutral, so I gave the Crusaders like an extra point or two for getting the win away from home. They'll be frustrated with their first half, but still they can't complain about that result. And top of the log, still, I have my Blues. Big win over the Drua. As I mentioned, they had a couple of tries against the run of play, so I don't think they'll be all that ecstatic with the way that one went, but the win is the win is the win. So, yeah, we will see how things go in the upcoming set of games. For the competition, obviously, I am hoping we get some more Aussie wins to build on what the Brumbies have shown us. And at times, the games were genuinely very competitive. As I said, Reds had a bloody 17-point lead. The Tars at times, and even the Rebels, they were fighting. The Drua against the Blues were causing problems, but it's over the course of the 80 that we need to see those results come. So yeah, we'll see how things go. You guys let me know your thoughts. Fair? Harsh? You guys let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.